And my order's finished. 1 second. There we go. How is everybody doing today? Good morning, good morning, good morning. So, you might notice that we're in the Minecraft category today instead of the, oh, god damn it, of course. Pinky immediately sees it, and Pinky immediately redeems it. So, Pinky's on the lookout for that. But yeah, we're gonna be in the Minecraft category today. Yep, nope, it's that stinky frog. It's a stinky frog today. I knew it. I knew there was gonna be a stinky frog. But yeah, so I ordered some food. I'll have to run and go grab it when it comes here. And but we're gonna be reading into Dar later when we're doing our Jeopardy, alright? So we're still gonna start our day off slow, nice and easy like, but I want y'all to know that when we read in, it might get a little bit more excited and loud, alright? So that's why we're not in the ASMR category today. And yet, thank you for shouting out Dar. It's gonna be a lot of fun, a lot of fun. Now, Dar worked hard on it. I believe it. I fully believe it. I believe Dar did an amazing job. I haven't even seen it, which is good, because if I had seen it, this would not be as exciting. Watch it just be a thing where it's like, alright, now we're gonna bully Gene for 3 hours. It's gonna be like that episode of Game Changers where they brought on Brennan Lee Mulligan, and the entire show was just that Brennan Lee Mulligan's not allowed to win. Yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing it. Have y'all ever seen Game Changers? I might actually start hosting some like watch parties of Game Changers because I love it so much and I want to show people it. It's just so funny. And maybe if I do it enough, people get excited for it. And people be like, oh my god, Gene, you should run a show like Game Changers. And then I might start running my own Game Changer show. And then I get to throw something else on my plate. Alright, we're gonna swap scenes. Get ready for Game Changers. Love it. So the idea of Game Changers, for those of you who don't know, also first off, thank you Addy for getting first. Thank you Naptime for getting second, and thank you Dar for getting third. I might have played on my own a little bit, chat, and I started naming worlds after how I died in them. Oh, never mind, y'all were here for this one. Yeah, no, you've been here for this one. I can't believe no one noticed, though, that one of the worlds is just gone. Because I played it off stream. Ah, man. How y'all doing? How'd everybody sleep? Everybody doing okay? I think it's the Southern. People don't hear the Southern. I said, how everybody doing? You all doing okay? There we go. What do you mean? What do you mean, chat? What do you mean you didn't sleep? Oh. Oh, good morning, Lost. Why ain't y'all been sleeping, Why ain't y'all been sleeping? Wait a second. Just a minute. You got a contest today? What kind of contest you got today? Moreau, no. That's not how, no. Neeks, honey, sweetie pie, sugar lump. Darling, you know that's not how that works. A band contest? No, that's not how that works. You can't make sleep a freestyle. That's how you don't sleep. Oh, cool. Alright, my question is, if I throw this, does it always go up? Alright, so seaweed does not always go up. Understood. I wish there was a way to make it always go up. Now I'm gonna start self-crafting with this. No, it's not. Laying awake in bed is not better than sleep. What is wrong with you? Y'all worry me so much. Like, what am I supposed to do with you, sweeties? What am I supposed to do? So I'm just gonna let you have horrible sleep forever. You did this on purpose. You just don't want to be there to support me. I'm gonna call you cute, you little insomniacs. Ain't nothing cute about being an insomniac. All you do is worry me. Every single one of you. Don't steal their sleep. They need it. Well, two. They barely sleep as it is. I mean, I shared my normal voice. Tell her I think she's adorable for liking the redeem. And for her, I could do any accent she wished. See, Moreau, I'm proud of you. Moreau, I'm very proud of you. You're doing what you should be doing. Good morning, Shiny. How you doing today? I also slept, not as much as I should, but I slept plenty. As much as I really need. I don't want to kill her. I need her in one piece, don't I? Alright, Shani. You do. You need to get more than 2 hours of sleep. The minimum, absolute minimum, if everything has gone wrong in your life, you should be getting is 4 hours of sleep. Right? And that's 4 hours throughout your day. It does not have to be all at once, but at least 4 hours throughout your day. No, it does not count, Dar. I'm sorry, honey. I'm glad you got even that. You worry me, Dar. You especially worry me. Yeah. No, Nix, I definitely agree. But, according to the military, your body can technically survive on 4 hours throughout a day. Your body will survive. And that's what I'm telling you, it will survive. Your mental health will go down. Your cognition ability will be reduced, but you will survive. And chat, you should be doing more than surviving, okay? Hard to believe I know. Oh my god, Neeks. But you're not in the military. You're not in the military, sweetie. Yes. Yes, honey. Your mental health will decline due to your lack of sleep. Did you not know this? You're not going to be able to process emotions and many other things like as well if you don't sleep. Sleep is so fucking important to every part of you. Morning, Chevelle. How you doing? I'm about to say, there's no way they got my order already. Oh my god, yes, Eddie. As well as if you have anything like undiagnosed ADD or autism, and you're not medicated, you will also have difficulty processing emotions. For instance, I have to make sure I'm on my Adderall constantly, or I will be very impulsive and have mood swings. I hope you enjoy your time here. Ishmael. I do think it's funny that the way I have to survive right now. You know what, today is Friday and we're going over to Dar's today, so everybody is allowed out of the basement when we go visit Dar, okay? It's Uncle Dar's house. Oh. It's Saturday. Sorry, chat. You missed a day. Yep, sorry, you missed the out day. You're not supposed to say it. You're not supposed to tell them. They'll get a few seconds of fresh air. It's fine. Good morning, Bama. How you doing? Nothing. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Okay, can I... Will this keep the lava in check? Morning, Vanya. Chad, I need to go put on pants. Chad, I'll be right back. I need to put on pants. Chad, I give up. I'm canceling it. I'm canceling life. I'm just being gonna not exist anymore. It's okay. It's okay. I don't need to exist anymore, Chad. We're just canceling everything. Chad, I'm canceling myself. I'm wearing pants. Chad, I'm no longer. I am no. It's me. I am no. It's too late. I am no now. Pinky, are you not wearing pants? Pinky, the scandal. How could you? Chat, if you're not wearing any pants, you're legally required to tell me right now. Don't you be sniffing pants. Calypsy. Good morning, Calypsy. I'm such a good doggy. God, I love short shorts. I like wearing and I like other people wearing short shorts. It's the best. Okay, but Katamia, you wear dresses only. Pikachu pajamas, that's so cute. Pajamas gone. I am skirt, hear me skirt. Thank you for the work, Ocean. Ocean. Enjoy your sleeps. Chat, if you haven't gone and followed Dar already, please go follow Dar. We're gonna be over there later. I want to make sure everybody shows up. Yep, we buddy. I need to make a cauldron. Cauldron. I don't have enough. Nope, I'm sorry, Wolf. I'm gonna have to miss your flight. You're just gonna have to miss your flight. Just tell them something more important came up. Be like, my favorite streamer online is gonna be on a game show and I have to be there to support them. so that I can cheer if they win and boo if they lose. Enjoy your eeps, Hattie. Enjoy your eeps. Remember, if I lose, we're calling that it's a scam, and that it was that they're cheating. Who's growling? Remember, chat, it's only fair if I win. Oh, this leveling is taking so long. Okay, here's the idea. Morning, Lynx. How you doing? So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna repair this as much as I can. 1, 2, can't do 2. 1. And now I'm gonna clear out a little section to try to run a little farm out of. We'll do... oh, this is already pretty clear, isn't it? Yeah, screw it, this will work. Do for now. And grab a little water. Now, pumpkin, potato, gran. I think the funniest part about this right now is that... Alright, give me a second. Pumpkin. Doop. 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 That to make stuff, to repair my pickaxe, I'm having to farm. Well, Volfa, Neeks applied for mod. Neeks has already been accepted as mod. Yo, can he see chat? I cannot. No. Sorry, Mecca, what's up? I'm just very focused on what I'm doing right now. Why? Do you need something, sweetie? And what you want a custom with? You're the coolest kid. I believe it. You are the coolest kid. That's as far as the farm's going for now. I'm not planning on wearing anything for Halloween. Should I be having a costume? Okay, who the fuck is Dr. Donut? Better at what? You okay, sweetie? Gonna be a Skyrim orc merchant. Which that sounds like a lot of fun. Hope you enjoy it. Black and white stockings, I suppose. Bat wings, hair clips. That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, no, actually, Chad, what are you gonna be doing? What are you wearing for, Halloween? What am I doing with the granite? Is there anything I can do with this? Oh! I kind of like polished granite. Looks nice. I might do that. Cute. Are you busy on Halloween? What are you gonna be doing? Can't do anything there. Oh wait, I have leather. That was specifically so I can make books. I can make bookshelves. Or at least so I can make an enchanting table. Nice. Chat, don't let me waste that leather. You want to cosplay Jean for Halloween? No. Why would you cosplay me for Halloween? That'd be ridiculous. Maverick from Top Gun? That'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. No, don't go cosplay. It's fair. It's fair. It's good to know that I'm easy cosplayable. That gives me the vibe of you look like you'd be easy to draw. Isn't it? It's kind of cool. I should make a longer one of these. Oh, I think it'd be really cool actually. I would immediately be in love. Not in love, sorry, wrong word. I just think it's really cool. Yes, Chad, if you want me to fall in love with you, dress up like me. Genuinely, if somebody were to dress up like me, it would just be so cool. I wouldn't fall in love, but you know. Oh, thank you, sweetie. You know you already have my heart. Garv Darling. Where'd that donut guy go? Okay, you don't have to be the actual same height as me to cosplay me. That's never been a requirement. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? This is what you want. This is who you need. This is actually what you want. I mean, okay, if that's what you say. If you insist, this is what you need so badly. You want stilts? Alright, you can get stilts. I'm not going to stop you from getting stilts. This has never, ever, 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 ever been anything that I would stop you from doing. I mean, you're close enough, Yuki. You're close enough. Okay, we're also going to try to grow a tree down here, but remember, that's going to be super, super, super hard. Why am I not getting any more experience from this? Where are my experience points? Give me experience points. Where have my experience points gone? Chat, they've taken them from me. They are like, no longer do you get the experience points. How dare you even consider having experience points from this? There it is. There's so little. Oh, this is the worst. The absolute worst. I don't know how I'm going to do this one. Yes. Well, I would like to do that, but you see, I have very little pick left. I suppose what we can do. Oh, is risk it. We're going to take some risky maneuvers, okay? We have a little bit of wood left. Very little wood, but I will take it. Make it into sticks. Okay. It's time. That is all. That's all we have. Chat, pick a direction. Where are we going? What do you mean? Why can't you play it? Oh, shoot, my food. I'll be right back, chat. Yeah, Anya, that sounds like a lie. Yeah, of course I'm mute. Nix, sweetie, if you see me move, it takes me more than 3 seconds to actually sit down. You don't gotta tell me I'm muted. Now, first off, I saw that Anya specifically set fires. The mouse will move when there's any noise at all. Also, yeah, I'm just not ordering from that place anymore, and I am so tired of some delivery drivers where they're just like, "Oh yeah, it's in there." I'm like, no, honey bunch, I can feel the bag you handed me. There's no drink there. I specifically ordered a drink individually because that's why I like ordering Uber drinks because I would like a soda and I don't have sodas. And of course, there's no soda. The one thing that I was actually really wanting. So, yeah, now I'm out that money, I guess. Because, it's not like they're going to reduce the money that I put into delivery fee and everything else. So I'm just frustrated with that. And I hate when I'm trying to explain to the guy who's there, it's like, yeah, it's there. Sure, you handed me 2 bags. I ordered a large drink. There's no way the drink's fitting in this. Okay, but I took my meds, so my mood will be better in just a second. Yes, but what is it, Yuki? No, fuck him. He's not coming back. Mm-hmm. That's too bad. No, because I would not expect that from him because he specifically did not ask. You can tell he didn't ask and he didn't even try. Because he just probably took the food and left. Okay, I'm done. I drove for Uber for a little while. And like that's the bare minimum. If you look at the order, if it says there's a drink, you say, "Hey, is there a drink?" You'd want somebody to do that for you, you know? So why would you not do it for somebody else if you'd want it done for you? Okay, we're picking a random direction. Hopefully we'll find something. Yeah, Ani started fires. Anyways, I'm back. Oh yeah, that happens too. I've had that happen. That one was the worst. I ordered something from a place before it was closing, okay? Like enough time between closing and when they were supposed to get there. And the person I ordered the food, they drove close to my apartment so that they could check off that they delivered it and then kept driving. Mm-hmm. Or the one guy who just decided to say, fuck it, I can't figure out where your apartment is. I'm going to leave it at somebody else's apartment. He was not even the right apartment complex. Yeah. I'm going to mute myself while I eat this 1 sec. Yeah, see, I don't really mind the food stealing as much, except the fact that, like, they drove by my place to steal it. Like, because that means that they were intending to do this again. They could have just fucked off with it, you know? But the premeditated attempt is what throws me off. Also, just steal food. It is not hard to steal from grocery stores. I've done it before. Come on. I will always encourage theft if it is survival. Your life is worth more than corporate greed. And it will always be that way. Food banks don't exist everywhere, and there is plenty of food deserts. We throw away so much food that it is. It ain't worth it. We should not be allowed to throw away fresh food. Yeah. Or being able to intentionally damage products. Well, of course. Tell your sister. And then it gets better. I'm sorry that she had such a negative experience with that. But those friends aren't worth a single thing. And the people who excluded you are only jealous. You're an incredible person. And things will get better for you, I promise. You lovely, lovely you. And if ever you need anybody to remind you that your self-worth is not based on others, feel free to come back whenever, okay? You're an incredible person, and you don't need no one else to tell you that. Let's see. 5. 5, which one repairs more? Interesting. Pinky, you should get some sleep. Get some sleep, sweetie. Gotta do what you gotta do. Can you have a bite? Sure, you can have a bite. Alright, what direction are we picking this time? I'm gonna try this way. It's funny, I'm only now digging copper because it gives me experience points. I just hope we can run into a cave system. That's all I want is a cave. If we can find a cave, I can. Oh, there we go. That's worth a lot. Give me that lapis. Cave is gonna make it a lot easier to find things. We can just run around, maybe fight some monsters. Manifest cave energy. What did you have, Ricardo Mia? What'd you eat? That sounds delicious, though. Make yourself an eggy sandwich. Oh, redstone. Alright. Let's think. What about brisket? How is this so hard to find iron? I might need to just start, back on my strip mining again. Oh, stop being picky. One sec. You can make beef brisket. You can make all sorts of briskets. It doesn't have to be pork. Morning, chum. Okay, I was about to say. I mean, I assumed. I don't know anybody else is going to go by Chump the Croco. You may be surprised, but you're wholly unique in the choice of that name. I'm glad I could help you, sister. Whew. I'm lost. Oh, there it is. Okay. We're gonna throw in some more copper. We're gonna go grab more seaweed. Well, that was unintentional. I have practically dug out a cave system. Unfortunately, it ain't enough to get me what I need. You are a stinky frog. You're very much a stinky frog, Pinky. What do you mean if? It's okay, it's okay. You're allowed to be a little stinky. Don't spritz me. Don't deny what you are. Why would you throw this at me? Why is this your retaliation? Revenge? Revenge? How's this revenge? You just enjoy this. Chat, we got clock now. Mm-hmm. Wait, why does it cost me one enchantment to push the clock through? I'm doing it. I got you. Oh, fine. Here we go. Yeah, that's one stinky frog, all right. That is definitely one stinky frog. That is one stinky frog right there. That is 100% a stinky frog. All right, that is exactly what it is. I knew it. I absolutely knew it. I mean, oh, yeah, but that's what stinks here. I ain't gonna lie about it. Wait, you want me to lie about it? I ain't gonna lie, not here. This is a place of truths. Hey, enough of that. I'm gonna take this, throw that there, grab the other torch. Put one here, boop. And one here, boop. That's gonna be the best we're gonna get right now. And now we got 2 potates. Oh. What's my favorite artist to band? My favorite artist would be, Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. It's kind of difficult to think. I'm not really a fan of Van Gogh that much. I mean, I know a lot of people love Van Gogh, but I feel like Van Gogh's a little overrated. He ain't bad, and there ain't nothing wrong with the man. But, like, genuinely, I've seen his paintings in person, and I understand why people didn't give him the credit. Because when you see a picture of Van Gogh's paintings, it looks flawless, there ain't no issues. When you get up close to one of his paintings, there's a lot of gaps where he just left this space that if he'd like put a little bit more paint on the brush or something, it'd look a lot nicer. Just like an additional extra step of detail here that he could have put in. But he didn't. And I feel like the piece is very, very lacking. You said artist, so I answered your art. As for musicians, there are too many incredible musicians out there for me to just pick a few. And I'm a big fan of music. So for that, I'd have to do, I mean, Johnny Cash is classic. I love Johnny Cash. Nine Inch Nails is always one of my go-tos. Hmm. And then I like, Emily Autumn is great. I'm losing my voice. 1 second. Love me some Primus. I mean, there's too many good bands out there. I mean, I'll only pick a few. What are you done with? Mm-hmm. The one unfortunate thing is the amount of bands that I used to enjoy that turned out to be awful people. You know? Like it ain't that hard to be a decent person. Especially when you got all. Get out of the. I'm stuck. Chat. I'm stuck. What the hell? I almost died. That was insane. I almost died to that. Miss, I ain't bad. Gerson Boom? That's fair. You're allowed to be old. If you tried not breathing water, I might have not tried, getting stuck in. Hey, Cheesy. Oh, hey, Cheesy. It's been a bit. How you doing? Here's a question. Cheesy, I hope you're doing alright. No. Chub, no. I would not let any of my mods out of the basement. Why would I do that? They might run away. How am I supposed to keep them here? Well, I missed you, Cheesy. It's good to see you. I was worried about you a little bit. I'm glad to see you're doing alright. How much is this going to cost? Really? Shit, that's worth it. Alright. Should you really be outing yourself like that? Yeah, man, I wish they would stop eating my cables. I don't have much wood, Yuki. I only have so much wood and I can't get more wood. So I'm using any bit of wood that I find. I'm keeping it just in case. Because there's no way for me to get any more wood right now. Man, what cheese they say? Alright, let's see. What do you mean the G-nuts? What do you mean G-nuts? Where'd that come from? I feel like I missed something. Hi, Crucy, how you doing? Oh, I've been alright. Alright, what would you say the best way to face fear? That depends on your fear. If you fear something that can be safely confronted, then confront your fear in a safe space, you know? If you fear something like dying, that you really can't safely confront that. And so the goal more is to try to understand what you fear about a thing, alright? Things like, let's say, spiders, for instance, are more of a genetic fear, having a quick moving object out of the corner of your eye. And that is the kind of thing that exposure will help you with. Things like certain kinds of foods, for instance, that might be something, again, exposure, more of trying to like get your mind past that. Actually, some of my food dislikes and aversions that I got past by getting very, very drunk and eating those foods and trying to pay attention to the features that are good about it. The dog? No. The dog, I think, is going to be one that's pretty easy. Getting comfortable in the dark. Get yourself in a place where you feel safe. And remind yourself that there ain't nothing out in that dark. Ain't nothing. Especially when you're in a safe space like your own bedroom. Ain't nothing hiding out there. Ain't nothing waiting for you. Quiet, calm, relaxing. Slow exposure is perfect for that. When it comes to things like insects. One second. Yeah, that's a good one, Gerson. Gerson Boom. Wait a second. I hear something. But you know what? Yeah, hit me up in the Discord sometime. Ping me about your fears, and we can figure out a plan for it. All right? We'll sit down. Maybe we'll establish a little game plan for you, and see how you can handle things. All right? Perfect. All right. Oh, wait a second. That gave too. Yeah. And remember, I mean, like, if you're outside in the middle of the night and things are dark, it's totally fine to be afraid. The only goal is to get fear to a place where it's manageable, alright? You ain't want yourself to have no fear. Things like the dark, unfamiliar environments, that kind of thing, of course, they're going to be a little scary. And it's good, you know, to necessarily avoid a bug that you don't know. As long as you're just nervous about it and not panicked about it. Panic is a killer. If it ain't too bad. Don't pick up all the bugs. What do you mean, Echo? They ain't never a wrong time. How you doing? Wait, how long ago was I supposed to be out of the Southern Voice? Oh, god damn it, I've been doing it for too long. No, there we go. Putting that in there. Iron. Nice. One second, can I eat some more of my sandwich? Were you actually afraid? What were you afraid of? Little old me. I mean, that's fair, I get it. Oh, man, I've played VR chat, and I'm terrified to talk in VR chat. No, we still have a sleep. Well, get some more sleep. Go back to bed. You ain't need to be up right now. So, chat, we have a little bit of a problem. You know, I said I wanted a cave. I forgot the cave is going to be full of monsters. And I don't have a shield. Now, I can, try my hardest here. Maybe make a bit of a bucket to keep things away. But if there's a skeleton, I'm SOL'd. Oh, 100%, yes. Yeah, that definitely. Getting that under control, I think, would be very, very helpful for you in general. I'm super, Allie, that's amazing. You're doing great. Genuinely, I'm super proud of you for that. I like punk rock. Ramones, Sex Pistols, some of the newer stuff. Black Flag. I'm all for punk. Have I heard of STEM? What's STEM? We're gonna do this real quick. No. Damn it. That's what I was trying to avoid. Oh, shoot. A pumpkin. Think of me vibe-wise. I'm such a good doggy. There you go, and stretch. So you know what? I want to just waste that one then. This is gonna be such a pain. I don't know either. But it's cute that you do like it. It's so expensive. Oh well. Alright, here we go. Oh, I'm gonna take a bucket of water with me just in case. Just maybe a few buckets of water that I can use in an emergency situation. Alright. I'm ready. You need more sleep than that. You need it for your healthy brain. You're not gonna be able to sleep well, and Control emotions and feelings without proper sleep. Does anybody remember what direction I was in? Is it this way? There it is. Yes. Alright. And there's that. Please, no skeleton. Oh, we got the iron. Let's grab the copper real quick. I'm gonna sneak that here. Jeez. This is so difficult right now. Trying to stay just alive. Grabbing the important loots. But chat, how are you doing today? But oh, Sniffer. Yep, someone stinks. Who is it? Who is it, chat? Which one of you stinks? Who hasn't showered yet? I also haven't showered. Maybe it is me. Oh, I'm so sorry. Chat, am I encouraging you all to play hardcore mode? Because I keep hearing about so many people playing hardcore. Hey, me? No, it's you, chat. You smell. You're the goofy goobers who smell. I encourage a lot of things. Hopefully positive things, you know, eat 3 meals a day. At minimum, eat 2 meals a day. Like, we're talking survival here, chat. I've used the app a little bit. I couldn't keep up with it. I hate the mini zombies, come on. Yes. I think apps like those are definitely useful for some people. Shoot. And alright. Oh. Kadmia, I can play the game, don't you worry. You know, would it be beneficial to you all if we set up a little bit of a morning routine during my ASMR streams in the morning? We could start with a little, wake up. Now I want you to write down the things that you need to do. If showering is something that you need to do, you want a little reminder of, let's write it down. Let's get a little list going. That way you can check it off throughout your day. Maybe we'll spend like a 20-minute session there during the start, while we're just talking and hanging out. And affirmations, that would be nice. You haven't eaten in 3 days, you need to eat. What'd you do at your job? Okay, we can handle creepers. Creepers are fine. Fucking skeletons. That's good. Malaka, we should say you should get up some. Need to go out and get some food if you can. Wish I had a ranged weapon, chat. How they spawn so quick? That's what I want to know. Oh, spiders exist in hard mode. I'm playing hard mode. It's not gonna work. Yeah, I just fought 2 spiders. I fought one just a few minutes ago. That's why I have spider eyes. Oh no. I see, I see. Oh yeah, I have my brightness set to 90 so chat can see when I'm in the dark. Alright, where do we get it all? Alright, we're gonna throw in some more seaweed here. Thank you for the follow, FemCorpse. How you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Does that mean you're like Corpse, the musician or like just a body of a lady? Curious. Oh, nice. I mean, I feel like that's implied, but my voice sounds comforting. I'm glad to hear. What do you think, chat? Should I add lurk friendly? As viewers, as my lovely viewers, is lurk friendly something that you look for? I guess not really. I guess not all streams are lurk friendly. Can I tell you all about how I used to stream when I started? And like this is like just to tell you all, like, you can make mistakes. You're allowed to make mistakes and learn from them. When I started streaming, I didn't realize that lurking was a thing. And I would go through my people who came into my stream and I'd call them out. I'd be like, oh, hey, welcome to the stream, person who just came in. It's lovely to see you. Because to me, it was like, you know, going into a store, right? And somebody goes, welcome in. I wanted to be a VTuber as well. You should do it. I'm actually going to make a budget guide to being a VTuber. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around. I think I'm going to make a series on that. It's how to be a budget VTuber. Oh, do you have an Android or do you have an iPhone? Okay. I would have to see to make sure. I don't think VTube Studio is compatible that easily with Android. You have to do some additional work, which I'll have to look into. I might need to find an Android phone somewhere that I can get for cheap to do a little testy test. If you want to do normal streaming, you can download the Streamlabs app. Drawing is your hobby? Oh, you'll fit right in. Chat, how many artists do we have here today? Is there anybody here who doesn't like to draw at least a little bit? Oh, and there's the Discord if you'd like to check it out. And it's an 18 plus Discord that does require identity verification. It's for my security as well as your own. I'm an artist. Yeah. Stacks of kelp. Bloop. I might save some of the kelp and start using charcoal again. I'm gonna split the stacks. One there. One there. You do nice stick figures. It is true. It is true. I'm glad you enjoy it so much. My army. Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess you are all part of the menagerie, aren't you? Welcome to the menagerie, by the way. We should make the branding a little bit more obvious. God, I should do that. Muro, you do really good art. I like your art. No, I don't know how to spell menagerie at all. If you spell it even close to right, then you do better than me. I keep wanting to spell margarine instead of menagerie. What was that noise? Alright, let's see. Is that something that you'd all be interested in, though, if I do a budget guide to VTubing? I think it'd be helpful for some people, especially like where your budget should go. Because too many new VTubers go on and they like immediately commission a $200 model without even like really looking into who the artist is, or without even like seeing what features are available because they don't know what they want. I did that twice, and I got things that I'm definitely not happy with. And then I went onto Booth, bought a pre-made for a few bucks. It was like $30 maybe. And I'm so much happier. There's such like this want for individuality, but like you can do some customization. And the fact is, the people that you run into, even if they are using your same model, are going to be so much different than who you are. The individuality is just that. The individual. It's not the model you have. I hear you, little skelly boy. You missed the pump being the banner? That's fair. Yeah. Like, my greatest suggestion is the most expensive bit of your equipment or of your streaming should be your microphone. Because people can deal with a scuffed model. People can deal with so much. But if you sound bad, ain't much you can do about that. You can do some minor improvements here and there. But, you know. Oh, yeah. VTubing is very much virtual puppeting. And you have to remember, God, I have to remember too, that you're puppeting. You're not just standing on a screen. Though, I think that could be said the same about camera VTubers as well. Not camera, flesh tubers. So many people forget that they need to also be moving around because guess what? People see you. They don't want you just standing there. They want to just look at your face. Celine opened their eyes a lot more. Yeah. Well, and I also have hooded eyes. I have dark eye bags all the time, and I have hooded eyes, so the reference is only so much I can do. Which is something that you can compensate within settings. But I choose not to. I always look sleepy. Because I am always sleepy. But when we're doing just chatting segments, I do just chatting segments and the model's the focus. That's when I go ham with my puppeting. That's fair. Everyone's here for different things. But we're dead. Oh, we survived. That's what I'll have to do next time. Driving in my car right after a beer. Hey, that bump is shaped like a deer. D-U-I know about you die. And drive 100 miles an hour. Little did you know I set up on gas. I never said I wasn't brain rot chat. Drowned. Yes. Shoot. Oh. Come on, baby girl. Come here. Come on, baby girl. Come here. Come here, sweetie. Let me just... Jesus fucking Christ, that scared the hell out of me. I don't know if y'all heard it, but my Windows Defender just went off. What the fuck? Is that what I think it is, chat? Is that what I think it is, chat? Ain't no way. Geode. Ah, so cool. So cool. I'll be back here later. Yeah. I swear they've made the zombies quieter. What time is it? Could we stop some time? Chat, don't forget at exactly 6 we're gonna go try to raid into Dar. Hello, hello. No. Sweet. Calling us all pretty. Who's the prettiest though? That's what's important. Better be me. I better be the prettiest. Chat, am I the prettiest girl at the ball? Bluffing Skelemans. I'm gonna be the prettiest girl at the party. Hey, how dare you call me out on my reference? She's gonna be the prettiest girl at the party. I'm just gonna do this real quick. Boop, boop, and boop. Stay with me. I am Bubbles. Okay, I am Bubbles. I mean, who else would I be? Out of all of the people in Powerpuff Girls, I'm not the smart one. I'm not the tough one. I'm the one who likes animals. I'm not Buttercup. I'm most definitely not Blossom. Since when am I sassy, girl? I am Mojojojo. Mojojojo. Alright. I'll give it a stretch. It's me, Mojojojo. Aku. Yeah, I too have daddy issues. I am not. I am no. Don't. What is that, Mr. something? Him, right? Him. God. They go by him. Wait, do they actually go by him? Wait. Devil. One second. No way. Oh my god, it is. Do you know he does have a name? His name is Him, H-I-M. Do you know why his name is Him? Do you know what Him stands for? Have you all ever heard the band Him? They did the Rip Out the Wings of a Butterfly. For you, my love. Rip out. No. Him. Yeah, His Infernal Majesty. Legitimately. He was supposed to be the devil, but they changed it for religious reasons. They called him Him. But His Infernal Majesty is still the devil. Do you mean the devil from the Bible? I cannot believe that. That is crazy. I like these lakes. Well, that's spooky. Him is not that old. My love, my little gothic girl. Do 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 boo 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 boo. God, I should do 69 Eyes cover. My little gothic girl. And that's a man with a deep voice. Is this? Where's my escape? Is that my escape? Well, yeah, I mean, you expect me to be at least over 20, right? Chat, I'm actually, I'm not going to make a joke about that. I was going to say that I was below the age, but you know, no, we're not. That will get you banned on Twitch. Can you imagine? It's like Gene is demanding all these things. Oh shoot, oh shoot, oh shoot, oh shoot, oh shoot. What the fuck? Why did that blow up? Why did the creeper blow up? You can smell the panic. This has been my worst run, by the way. Trying to find home. In 97. Oh. How did I hear it? do you figure out what to do with all of this? Shut up. Would you say you're a runner? You're a track star? 11 is so much. Yes, but repairing crap is usually slightly more expensive than anything else. I was eating lettuce. It's honestly usually better just to build a new one. Unless you have something that's enchanted. Oh yeah, what do I use the glowing sack for? How do I make a picture frame? Why is your brain not functioning? Am I ASMRing what sound? Well, I could make a picture. Don't need what? What are we talking about? Oh, glow arrow sounds cool then. There you go. That does sound like fun. I hope you have fun with it. I don't even know what I'm going to do with all this kelp. But it's something alright. Go naked. No clothes. Who needs clothes? Clothes are lame. Clothes are for nerds. I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts. Here they are, sitting in a row. Doom, 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 doom. Doodly-doo. No, it's fair. You should be medicated. God should have had you born with a medical prescription, to be honest. Okay, I came pre-prescribed. Hey, I'm funny, okay? I'm hilarious. I wonder what I can collect with fish. Chat, we have 8 minutes left. We have 8 minutes left. Well. This is how fishing is supposed to work, right? I want to see if it will go down. What direction will it go down in? Or is it just hitting the roof? Oh, it's just hitting the roof. Oh, what if I... Here. Wait, why did that work? Come on, catch a fish. Is it worth it? Catch a fish. You can hypothetically. I don't know if this is wide enough. I don't think it's gonna work. I might need to make a lake. Yeah, and see now it gets stuck up there. Mm-hmm. Is it worth it? And let me work it. Put my thing down, flip it and reverse it. Sure. Sure. Hi, Lynx. How you doing? We have 5 minutes left. Okay. Can somebody do me a favor? First off, shout out Dar for me. I would appreciate that. And can somebody see if Dar started yet? Oh, Dar's not started yet. Alright, Dar. Well, you know. Let me know when you've started. And I will rate into you. And so for that, we're going to start. We're going to wake up a little bit. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's get up a little bit. Wakey, wakey. So, yeah, we're going to be over at Dar's doing some Jeopardy. It's going to be a lot of fun. Dar has it all planned out already. I'm looking forward to it. And now we're going to dig down. 1, 2, 1. Let me raid you. Not allowed, Nix. Yes, we're going straight into Jeopardy. We're going straight into Jeopardy. I'm raiding into Dar. I wanted to build up some numbers over here. So we can have all these cool people over there. Oh, my fucking, you know, Neeks. Sometimes I have things to say about you. Other times as well. What, say things about Neeks? No. I'm a good boy. Well, you know what we should do? Here's what we're gonna do. That way I can hee. There we go. Gotta catch one fish. Mm. No, I wanted to do this. Iron. Aaron earned an iron urn. Mm-hmm. There we go. All right, come on, give me fish. Fish, 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 fish. Come on, come on, fish me. Give me fish. Give me fish. Give me fish. Fish, 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 fish. Arise. Erect. I know what I'm about. Because that's what he says. Arise. I love that thing. Oh god, I love that fucking... Great, man. Cool, man. Love that dude. Why'd you change shirts again? What do you mean? I was wearing this before. Why are you wearing multiple shirts now? Alright, we're waiting for it. We're gonna go check out Dar. Yep. We're gonna go check out Dar. Yes. Perfect. Alright, chat. Wait, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? That was weird. Alright, chat, copy the message. I'm sending you over. Bye-bye, lovelies. Mwah, 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 mwah.